Hello and welcome to My Music Problems. In this episode, I am going to discuss tunings and the fretboard. The reason why I'm doing this episode is because I've finally taken the steps in getting my guitars set up how I want and the tunings that I want, so that way I can easily kind of trade between guitars and get different ideas in different tunings and be able to record. That way I can get some heavier sounds, or even just some different sounds of, what I'm playing. That way I'm not just locked into this E standard setting that a lot of my songs are actually in. And it was good, when I got out of it, I feel like my heavier songs do come right now in this E flat. Well, it's actually drop D flat, where you flat the guitar and then just go the extra step with the D so that it's 2 D flats. And right now, that's the song I'm working on, plus Achieving Peace Through War. Both have that setting. So actually what I did was I took, as I had in the other videos, this document that I use to kind of, study the different major and minor keys that we know in Western music, and kind of use that as a template for where I am or what chords to use, or the different patterns of these keys, and kind of mix and match how you want to kind of just, you can just free form around, but, once you're kind of locked into something, you can kind of move around easier that way, and, come up with new ideas. So that way you're not always stuck in the same pattern. But what challenges that brings once you kind of get out of that mold is obviously everything down here is in standard, and up here, once you're in a C or a D, or even some kind of drop C, drop D with E flatted, or you could just be in regular drop D, where you would just take this and bring this D. Well, it'd actually be that D, move that to here. And so this isn't all of the different, there's so many different tunings for a guitar, but this is just kind of as of right now, what guitars are going to be tuned to what, and just my reference point for myself. Now there's some tricks in how this is presented, being that if you see that the E is the open string, you know that there's going to be an E here on the second string, an E here on the 7th string, an E here on the 5th string, and then obviously another E on the low string, and the 12th fret will be the octave of that E again. So that's going to be the same thing with the C. If you're tuned to C, like my Horizon will be, or when the Les Paul is tuned to D, you'll have it that same way. And of course, obviously, once you get past the 12th fret, you'll find that the 14th fret, the 19th fret, the 24th fret, if your guitar goes up to there, will have the same opened note for it. So obviously the lowest note will also be your highest note on a 24 fret, and your 22 string, actually my Les Paul is only a 22 fret. So when I tune this way, C will still be my lowest note, but D will be my highest note there. And then on a drop C with the 22 fret, it'll actually be C and C again, which is interesting. And it would be the same way on any 22th fret, no matter if you drop D with 22 frets. So anyway, the thing about having different tunings, if you just get kind of stuck. Well, number one is the lower you tune the guitar, the heavier it is. Now I like 6 strings more than 8 strings, and I was going to talk about that, but I'll probably do a video on that in itself, because even with the summary, it seems a little bit longer of an explanation than I wanted. But I think I would stop at 2 steps down at C standard, only because I do think it kind of, unless you have the right tone, a lot of times these lower tunings can get a little bit muddy. And I still like that more melodic sound out of the guitar. So I want to have that heavier chug that would come out of a C as your bass line, or your lowest note, than what this E would be, because as you can see, your E here drops all the way to your 4th fret. So you're gaining basically 2 steps of extra notes going higher than your typical middle C, which you would usually see on the 3rd fret of your A string. But now you're going below that, and you're kind of bringing, because that's the other thing about a guitar is, it's, and even reading music of guitar, your middle C here, your middle C here, definitely changes the dynamic when you can get lower and just get a heavier sound. And even playing in an E minor, G major kind of scale, all of a sudden you get a different sound when you're in the C and D sharp kind of range, or it could even be E flat, just depending on how you're going to look at that note and how you're playing. So I think what I'll do is go to because there is something I did one time in my Guitar Pro 7 that will kind of demonstrate this a little bit. So I'm going to do that now and demonstrate. So I wrote this song so that it'll sound in C standard. I want to write this song in C standard, but I originally wrote it in E standard. This is actually a step down. So this would be if I just decided that I wrote it in E standard, but I want to go to D. So I have all of my stringed instruments tuned to step down so that D is our lowest note, and this is what it sounds like. Now, it's funny because I actually did listen to what it sounded like in C standard before I started this up. I'm going to put everything back into standard, how it was originally written. And that's the cool thing here is, all I have to do is just go like this. I want to keep the fingering the same because it would adjust the notes to how the same, because obviously when we're doing this, we're changing the key that we're in from standard, and then it would adjust the notes so that they would stay the same, but they would be. So if you write something in a key and then you're like, well, maybe I'll change the tuning, you can adjust the key. So whoops, that's still would sound awkward because everything needs to be in standard. So that's just how easy it is. So now everything is tuned back to standard. And this is how it was originally written, what it sounded like. that was how it was originally written. And I, just kind of one day was like, what would it sound like if I did bring this down to C? And I even tried the D first. And I just found that even though it is the same melody, for whatever reason, I did just like the sound of this better tuned this way. And I was waiting for my guitar to get ready to do that so that I could hear the difference and actually play the difference, because I do really, for some reason, like the key that it's in when the guitar is tuned down two whole steps. And even though, obviously the fingering is the same and, the melody would be the same, there's just a difference. And you'll hear that it's the same melody, obviously, but you'll hear the difference in the song. That's just a basic idea of what I'm dealing with when it comes to actually taking the steps in using different tunings and having to work with the fretboard a little bit differently because the tunings are adjusting where all the notes are. So hopefully, as this is the first part of it, when I get the guitars back, I'll use actual real guitars and play some different riffs using the different guitars so that the differences can kind of be heard too with an actual guitar. So sorry I didn't play an actual guitar in this one, but it's all part of the journey. So sign out for now because this went really long.